The Nets won 112-108. It was a Sunday primetime game. It was an awesome game to watch, but I think we can all agree that it ended kind of poorly. The Clippers came back in the fourth quarter, and it was a tie game, I believe, or the Nets were up by 2. It was one of those. Kawhi Leonard drives to the basket, and James Harden is guarding him. James Harden is riding him the whole way, and Kawhi, he extends his arm, and the referees call an offensive foul. In my opinion, that should have never been an offensive foul or a defensive foul. It should have been a playthrough, and we should have had a tie game there or the Clippers up, whichever one of those it was. But I kind of feel like the refs robbed us of what would have been a great overtime game. Plus, I was betting on the game. Lately, I've been really into sports betting, and I betted that James Harden would get 10 assists. I think he finished with 7 or 8, and I betted Joe Harris would have 14 points. He ended up with 13. So I was really hoping something good happened and they went into overtime, but that's besides the point. I'm going to talk about the Nets right now, and because they've been on a hot streak, they are on a 6-game winning streak. 5 of them have been on the road. They beat the Pacers, the Warriors, the Kings, the Suns, the Lakers, and Clippers. They are now 12-1 against 500 teams. And is anybody else surprised with how fast the Brooklyn Nets are clicking? I mean, it's unbelievable. Right now, I don't think there is any team in the Eastern Conference that can beat the Nets in a 7-game series, and I don't think there's any team in the Western Conference that can do it either. The main reason I think the Nets have been so successful is because of one man, James Harden. I mean, I'm a huge James Harden fan. If you've been listening to this podcast, you know that. But he was snubbed from the All-Star game. He wasn't an All-Star starter. Bradley Beal made it over him. And I really don't know why. James Harden is averaging 24.9 points per game, so 25 basically, 7 rebounds, 11 assists. He had 37, 7, and 11 against the Clippers, and Harden is shooting 50, 40, and in the high 80s in free throws because against the Clippers, he missed a ton. But I think the most important thing about this Nets 6-game winning streak is that they have given up 111 points per game during that winning streak. Right now in the NBA, that would currently rank 10th. When James Harden move first happened, they had the best offensive rating of all time and the best defensive rating of all time. And people that have not been keeping up with the Nets still feel like they're a bad defensive team, but in reality, they are not a bad defensive team. And since KD has been out, Harden has taken it to a different level. James Harden right now, this is the first time with the Nets that he scored 20 plus points in 4 straight games. Those games have been 29 against the Kings, 38 against the Suns, 23 against the Lakers, and 37 against the Clippers. The Nets are 13-5 with James Harden. And like I mentioned earlier, I don't think anybody thought they would click this fast. The big 3 in Miami with LeBron, Bosh, and Wade, when they were assembled, they were 9-10 to start. The Brooklyn Nets are 13-5 since the James Harden trade, so they are on a roll, on a 6-game winning streak. And the biggest question mark when the Nets got James Harden was, is he going to share the ball? Is he going to be able to play off ball? How is he going to play? Then shortly they noticed that, Harden is going to be the point guard. I don't think it should have surprised anybody. James Harden was a point guard in Houston. His position was shooting guard, but he had the ball for the majority of the game and was always in pick and roll situations and facilitating. He was always a point guard in Houston. That just wasn't what his position was called when you look on stat pages or whatever. And the second biggest question mark is, how is he going to fit with Kyrie Irving? We all knew Kevin Durant, that's not a problem. Kevin Durant can fit with anybody. But Kyrie is the one that is the wild card. And to this point, this win streak has been mostly without KD and just Kyrie and Harden. Kyrie and Harden have been playing great together. And Harden mentioned this in the post-game press conference that they have all figured out their roles. Harden knows he's the facilitator. Kyrie knows he's the scorer. KD knows he's a scorer. And everybody else knows their roles. DJ knows he's a defender and a lob catcher, pick and roll guy. Everybody knows their role, and I think that's what's making the Brooklyn Nets so successful right now. But we all knew Kyrie was a wild card, and to this point, Harden has been nothing but has only been praising Kyrie Irving this entire time. Yesterday, after they beat the Clippers, he said that he's one of the most skilled players of all time. He said that he loves him as a person, as a guy, so off the court as well. And I don't think anybody is giving the Nets enough credit for how quickly they have clicked. Everybody has accepted their roles, and it's showing right now when KD comes back, who he's not only going to add offense to this team, but he's an elite defender as well. So he's going to add both. So this Nets team could be better defensively. Right now, they're one of the better defensive teams in the NBA in this 6-game win streak. And offensively, I mean, they're hitting historic numbers on the offensive end with the three. And the Clippers, I want to say this. They impressed me, and I think people have to stop talking about the Lakers as being locks to make it to the finals, because I think the Clippers are there, especially if Anthony Davis is not 100% to go. The Clippers can definitely make it to the finals. I'm not too sold on Utah as finals locks. I think it's between the Lakers and the Clippers. But man, their team has a lot of depth, and Kawhi is phenomenal, and so is Paul George. Even though he a lot of people like to disrespect Paul George nowadays, but he's still phenomenal. I want to say this because I think this is important. And when the trade happened for Harden, I said that the Nets were going to win the championship, but I don't think I was as adamant as I am now, and I'm about to say it again. The Brooklyn Nets will 100% win the NBA championship. There is no doubt about it. James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant make up the best offensive scoring trio in NBA history. Everybody talked about how it was going to work. Now it's finally working. Everybody talked about the defense. Now the defense is good. In the 6-game winning streak, they're only giving up 111 points per game, which would rank 10th in the NBA currently, and they're on pace for a historic offense. There is no team in the NBA that can beat the Brooklyn Nets in a 7-game series. Everybody likes to talk about teams in the Eastern Conference like Philadelphia. The Bucks and the 76ers are 5-5 in their last 10. The 76ers can barely beat 500 teams. They struggle against 500 teams. They have a 500 record or below against 500 teams. The Bucks, we all know in the playoffs they aren't what they are. And the Celtics, we know the Celtics aren't playing well at all. And who else is in the East? The Pacers and Raptors. Nobody is worried about the Pacers and Raptors in the East. The Eastern Conference will be a cakewalk for the Brooklyn Nets. It's really about the finals for them, the Lakers or the Clippers, and I think they can beat either of those teams in a 7-game series, and I don't even think it will go to 7. It maybe go to 6 or 5. People are sleeping on how good this Brooklyn Nets team is going to be. In the moment, everybody talked about how is it going to work, how is it going to this, how is it going to that, but 5 to 10 years from now, we're all going to say, wow, how could anybody pick against this team and when talking about winning the championship, because it was so dynamic offensively, and they're getting slept on defensively. So I'll say it again. The Nets are going to win the 2021 NBA championship. When the trade first happened, I was really adamant in my opinion in that. I knew it was going to work off the bat, but even I have been very impressed with how the Nets have been starting and how hot they have been. And I told Jack on a podcast the other day, I want James Harden to be more aggressive. And since KD has been out, James Harden has taken on that role, and Harden looks like Houston MVP Harden right now, and that's the James Harden I always knew he was capable of, and that's the one I wanted to see in Brooklyn, and now it feels like this team is unstoppable. They are 12-1 against 500 teams. What more can you ask for? The only loss came against Philly without Kyrie and KD, I believe, or against Toronto too. This team is a team to beat in the NBA, no doubt about it.